Good morning, members of Parliament, support staff, visitors in the public tribune, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to the Central Committee meeting number 1 of today, Wednesday, September 13, 2023. We have established a quorum of 10 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the following members: MP Rayon Peterson and MP Akeem Arundel. Anyone else? Does any other member of Parliament have notifications?
Yes.
I see MP Grisha Heiliger Martin. MP Heiliger Martin, you have the floor.
You see, my was pressed first, that's why. Let me take it off.
Okay. MP George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to the chair, my colleagues, committee, those persons sitting in the tribune, those that are viewing. Mr. Chairman, I just want to use this opportunity to extend my deepest sympathy and condolences to the people of Morocco. I don't know if you heard about the earthquake, I think it was, that struck there is the earthquake, right? Yes, that's the one I'm going to get to also. That where about 3,000 persons have lost their lives. And, you know, we got to thank God for sparing us from Hurricane Lee. And Libya, there are about 2,000 to 3,000 people who have died, but there are 10,000 people missing. So, I mean, you know, sometimes people say, well, yes, you know, it's far away from us, but no, we are all human beings. We all have, I mean, families, relatives, and so on, and these things are disastrous for humanity. So I just want to use this opportunity, Mr. Chairman, to extend our deepest sympathy on behalf and much strength to those who have lost loved ones during these terrible disasters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP George. MP Grisha.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A pleasant good morning to you. A pleasant good morning to all my fellow MPs and those viewing and listening online. MP George, through you, Mr. Chairman, indeed, some unpleasant news abroad, but today I would like to just, in a positive note, wish our fellow colleague, MP Duncan, a happy, happy, happy birthday. Should we just say a little small and happy birthday for, no, you sure? Happy birthday, MP Duncan. May you be blessed with many more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Grisha Heiliger Martin. We have as agenda points for this meeting: number 1 is advice regarding the installation and composition of the permanent and ad hoc committees of Parliament. Number 2 is advice regarding the installation and composition of the committees of Latin America Parliament, that is Parlatino. Number 3 is approval, final report draft, national ordinance, amending the national ordinance Integrity Chamber in connection with raising the age limit for members and deputy, and that is under Parliamentary year 2022-23-169. Under IS 864-2022-23, dated June 15, 2023. And the agenda point 4 is a presentation proposal, Parliament Digital Thesis Library, under document IS/377/2022-23, dated January 24, 2023. We go over to the agenda point 1. In accordance with the Article 21, paragraph 3 of the Rules of Order, at the beginning of each parliamentary year, as well as in the first public meeting after a periodic resignation or after the dissolution of Parliament, the President assigns the members to the permanent committees for the investigation of certain subjects and to the Committee for Petitions unless Parliament decides otherwise. By letter of August 8, 2023, under UV/221-2022-23, the faction leaders were requested to submit the desired composition of the permanent and ad hoc committees of Parliament for their faction to the Secretary General of the Parliament. Based on the received proposal, an advice was made. A total of 16 permanent and ad hoc committees are being proposed for the Parliament of St. Martin. It is noteworthy to mention that the Committee of Kingdom Affairs and Interparliamentary Relation comprises of only faction leaders and independent members. To which member of Parliament can I give the floor? MP Melissa Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you, my colleagues, those in the Tribune and those joining us online or by radio. Mr. Chairman, in providing the list of committees that I would be joining, I forgot to add myself to the ad hoc committee for the preparation of the construction of a new building for Parliament, so I request that I could be added to that committee. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, MP Melissa Gums. The next person I see is MP George Pantaflet.
Yes,
MP
thank you,
George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our committees, the members to the committee remain as previous, so there are not any changes at all that we made to it.
Thank you, MP George. I don't see anyone else. Thank you, members of Parliament. If there are no more comments, the advice will be sent to the public meeting for further handling and ratification. We go over to the agenda point 2. Advice regarding the installation and composition of the committees of the Latin American Parliament, that is Parlatino, in accordance with the Article 21, paragraph 3 of the Rules of Order, at the beginning of each parliamentary year, as well as in the first public meeting after a periodic resignation or after the dissolution of the Parliament, the President assigns the members to the permanent committees for the investigation of certain subjects and to the committee for petition unless Parliament decides otherwise. It has become customary that at the same time that the committees of Parliament are established, the same is done for the Parlatino committees. By the same letter of August 8, 2023, under UV/221-2022-23, the faction leaders were requested to submit the desired composition of the committees of Parlatino for their faction to the Secretary General of the Parliament. Based on the received proposal, an advice was made. It is being proposed for members of Parliament to be part of the total of 13 Parlatino committees. To which member of Parliament can I give the floor? No need. Thank you, members of Parliament. If there is no more comments, the advice will be sent to the public meeting for further handling and ratification. We go to the agenda point 3. Approval, final report draft, National Ordinance, amending the National Ordinance Integrity Chamber in connection with raising the age limit for members and deputy Parliamentary year 2022-23/169 under document IS/864/2022-23 dated June 15, 2023. On June 15, 2023, Parliament received the draft National Ordinance amending the National Ordinance Integrity Chamber in connection with raising the age limit for members and deputy. This document is registered as an incoming document under IS/864/2022-2023, dated June 15, 2023. Parliamentary year 2022-23-169. All members of Parliament received a copy of this document via email, and it can also be found on the P drive of Parliament. It has become customary that the responsible minister is invited to a central committee meeting in which the draft is presented. Members get the opportunity to pose questions. The minister gets the opportunity to answer the questions, and thereafter a report is made of the questions posed by the members and sent to the government for further handling. During the faction leaders meeting on Thursday, August 31st, 2023, the handling of legislation at Parliament was a point of discussion. During that meeting, it was agreed that going forward, it would be possible in certain instances to not have the aforementioned and meeting, and that a date would be established whereby factions are to submit their comments and questions on the draft. Once the questions are received, the Secretariat will prepare the report, and the report is then scheduled for a Central Committee meeting to approve the report so that it can be sent to the government for further handling in accordance with Article 31, Paragraph 4 of the Rules of Order. For this draft, factions were given the deadline of September 8, 2023 to submit their comments and questions. The draft report has been shared with members of Parliament. The proposal is therefore to approve the draft report and forward the report to the government for further handling. To which member of Parliament can I give the floor? I see MP Sarah Westcott-Williams. MP Sarah Westcott-Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good morning to you. A good morning to my colleagues. A good morning to all tuned in to this meeting of Parliament, those in the Tribune, and everyone else following this meeting. A very special good morning and wishes of happy birthday to our colleague, MP Solange Duncan. Wishing you all the best on your day and for many more years to come. Happy birthday, MP. Mr. Chairman, once again, thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on the matter before us. I have no comments as such on the proposal to increase the age limit of the members of the Integrity Chamber. However, I would like to, in this context, ask if the government can respond to us, to me, about two other high or councils of state with respect to the boards. And the two that I'm referring to are the SER. I would like to know what is the situation of the board of the SER. Are there any issues there? Are all organizations that are supposed to be represented on the SER, are they represented? So I would like to know that. And a similar question regarding the SZV. Again, the organizations that are supposed to be represented on the board, are they all represented? If they are not, why not? So if these questions in the context of this report can be put to the government and we can receive the answers as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Sarah Westcott-Williams. I don't see anyone else. So if there are no more comments, the report is hereby approved and will be forwarded to the government, including your questions, MP Sarah, and we'll await the answers, what we get from them. And then will be handled for a scheduled public meeting. We go over to the agenda point 4. Should I adjourn for a few minutes? I will adjourn for 3 minutes so MP Solange Duncan can take the other side. Meeting adjourned for 3 minutes. Welcome back. We go over to the agenda point 4, presentation proposal Parliament Digital Thesis Library under document IS/377/2022-23, dated January 24, 2023. On January 24, 2023, Parliament received a proposal from MP Solange Duncan regarding the establishing of a Parliament Digital Thesis Library. The Presidium of Parliament has discussed this topic and agreed to have this established on the website of Parliament and the Parliament General Team. The Presidium also agreed to allow the member to present her proposal in the Central Committee meeting. I therefore would like to give the floor to MP Duncan for her presentation. MP Duncan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleagues here. Good morning to everyone tuned in. It is my pleasure to be here and to present this proposal. I'm happy that the Presidium agreed to it, and so I look forward to presenting to my colleagues this initiative. So I will begin first by just giving an idea of what is to be expected. We will talk about what led to the proposal, engage in the diaspora, notable research, a knowledge agenda and thesis sponsorship, the benefits of this digital library, the logistics, and what should be next, of course, in my opinion. So as members of Parliament, we have a number of different roles. One of the most important of those being to represent the people of St. Martin. We also have a role to act as a co-legislator with government, in addition to exercising control over government's policies and monitoring, of course, what government does. In my opinion, to be effective as MPs, we need or we require accurate scientific data and information so that we could make our decisions, whether that is, again, to look at what government is doing or to initiate legislation. So this proposal came about due to the fact that we in Parliament here also have capacity issues. The way that the Parliament is structured, I believe that we lack that sort of research capacity. And so, in my opinion, a research and digital thesis library sort of acts in a way that can support us in our decision making and the work that we do. Mr. Chairman, hundreds of students every year leave St. Martin to go to study, and they go to pursue tertiary education, whether that is in the United States, in Canada, in the Caribbean. We have university here locally, and in the Netherlands, of course, also the United Kingdom. When you are pursuing a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD degree, depending on your university, a main component is the completion of a thesis or dissertation. And so if hundreds of students go abroad every year, that means that hundreds of dissertations are probably done. Many students, including myself, once upon a time, quite some time ago, completed a dissertation on a policy issue on St. Martin. So what we have is the diaspora, our people abroad doing scientific research that can help us to solve policy problems on St. Martin. The issue is we do not get that information in. If it is presented, it disappears, and there needs to be a place where we can house that research digitally, because it's 2023, and that MPs and government, even private sector, any institution, any office can access that information readily so that it can be used to inform decision making. So when we talk about the diaspora
can contribute so much more to this country's development. And that is why the thesis library is more than just a place where research can live. When you look at the diaspora and their contributions to the development, we can look at economics. So I believe that migration is actually going to increase. So St. Martiners are going to move away because of the economic situation. However, those that are aware, those that choose to live abroad will either come back. They may sometimes make investments at home, even though they're not living here. And they also would contribute to tourism figures. When we look at the social aspects of the diaspora, this is key to the first key to the thesis library. It concerns the transfer of skills and ideas, and even maybe social norms. So we recently, okay, it wasn't recent, but maybe a few months ago, a number of us went to the Netherlands and we met with our students. The difference this time is that we asked them to have discussions about what they think could improve St. Martin, and that we would actually use those discussions and hopefully host meetings on those ideas. This is a way for them to share what they have learned, to probably share skills that they have from abroad, which would, again, contribute to the development of St. Martin. When we look at the cultural aspects of engagement, we see contributions to soft power and diplomacy. Now, many of us, maybe not all, think that decision-making should be influenced by St. Martiners living abroad, because at the end of the day, they have a connection to this country. There is family that is still there. It's also a possibility to build our networks wherever there is the diaspora. So these are important aspects that I wanted to highlight that are connected to establishing this thesis library. In 2021, 2 students that I know of did research on the dump or the landfill. And I wanted to highlight them because I looked at their research and I thought it was so valuable, but that the policy advisors in government wouldn't see the research. And if they did, I don't know if they would use it in their work. And here in Parliament, we could have used this research as well. So first we have Imani Gums that did her research entitled, "How can the solid waste management system of St. Martin be optimized so that 49% of waste collected is diverted from the landfill in the next 5 years?" So Imani actually, she actually interviewed residents and asked them about how they thought about recycling and so forth, and looking at ways in which St. Martin could improve waste collection and recycling. She physically did this research. Then, and Imani did successfully defend her thesis and received a bachelor's in international business with a minor in finance from The Hague University. Next, in the same year now, so we're in the same sector, we're talking about the landfill. Ms. Chantal Yesurun successfully defended her dissertation entitled "Relocating the Dump Inhabitants, Resettlement or Displacement." Now, we did have a meeting with NRPB on this matter, and I remember some MPs were quite against the process that the NRP used, or at least the way in which the NRPB and the Dutch government decided on the resettlement. But Ms. Yesurun also interviewed the inhabitants. She talked to them. And this information, I asked NRPB if they received the dissertation, and they said they didn't know about it. Now, this information could have helped them in creating perhaps a smoother process and understanding at least what those inhabitants, the issues that they were facing. Ms. Yesurun has a Master of Science degree in International Development Studies with a minor in Urban Development from Utrecht University. My assumption and my proposal is that solving St. Martin's issues cannot be up to us alone. And when I say us, I mean Parliament and government. Students every year are doing the research. They're actually on the ground. They're interviewing. They're using data, qualitative and quantitative information to propose solutions. So when we talk about what is going wrong in this country, we need to include them as well. And I'm not only talking about students from St. Martin, I mean anyone doing research on St. Martin needs to be included, and we need to engage them. And I believe that creating a research library, what I call the Digital Thesis Library, is something that would be of extreme value for not only Parliament, but especially for government, when policymakers need to make policies based on evidence. We shouldn't be talking about how we feel about a matter. It needs to be data-based and scientific as well. A knowledge agenda and thesis sponsorship. So in the Netherlands, at the Tweede Kamer, there is a department for analysis and research. We unfortunately have no such department, but I know it is extremely necessary, again, so that our work can be evidence-based. And so in the Netherlands, a knowledge agenda is created, I believe, annually per committee. So an MP can say in their committee, once they get approval, listen, I would like this research on looking at MP pamphlet, MP debt cancellation, let's say. So we can ask a separate department or a research person to research debt cancellation. The committee gets that information in so that we could be informed about how we feel about the subject matter, but also to have the evidence to back our claims. What is also important about this knowledge agenda is the fact that we can also, as MPs, act as supervisors or sponsors for internships and for researchers. Every year again, students often come home and they look for places at which they can intern. They look for research assignments, but they need supervisors. And this is also important. Where else or what more of a place, a perfect place to have a supervisor than the highest body in the country, the legislative branch, who is in need of capacity building and research. So the benefits of a digital thesis library, I hope that I have explained those, includes the increased data availability for us to do the work that we have been mandated to do. What is important as well is that this library is accessible to the public, so that, again, policy advisors in government or other students can access the research that is available. We can, of course, create this knowledge agenda and hopefully increase our access to information. That is extremely important. And as I mentioned, engaging the diaspora allows us to continue to be connected to our people abroad, and that they also feel a part of the development of St. Martin and giving solutions. In terms of the logistics, the chairman mentioned the fact that Parliament's website would be the access portal for the thesis. This makes it extremely easy for persons to go onto the website. Internally, there is a P drive, so a separate drive, I believe, I'm not sure, would be our internal access to the research. What needs to be completed, though, is the submission guidelines, because we do have research that is done that may be sensitive. So the student may, or the researcher may say, I would allow the Parliament to view the research, but I don't want the research to be public. So we need to also ensure that any sensitivity or confidentiality is respected. Again, just making sure that the research is always available. Those processes need to be fine-tuned. And yeah, I think that's it for the logistics. For me, then, the next steps are pretty simple. Again, the submission process, fine-tuning, of course, with the Presidium, fine-tuning what that process looks like. A researcher says, hey, I have this research, I would like to make it available, making sure that they can easily send in the research, that a form is digitally available, making sure that confidentiality, if needed, is there. Technical readiness, the website needs to be able to have a portal that offers easy access to the public, to the research. Next, I believe it is important that both locally and internationally, our students, researchers, the diaspora knows of this library, so a public relations campaign, and that institutions are informed directly. Again, I would like to say that I think what is very important is that Parliament is seen as a place where researchers can come and be supported in the work that they need for their personal advancement, but also that we need to inform the work that we do. So then creating, I mean, this is, again, a Goedkeuring process. I don't know if we can look at their process, but I think creating an annual knowledge agenda would be good for us. I mentioned debt cancellation, but there's so many different topics that we cover here in Parliament, but that capacity to do research, to get information in outside of our faction staff, I think would be of great help to not only Parliament, but government. And I mentioned the internship availability. I believe that our students would be extremely ecstatic to be a part of the, not only the decision making, but be a part of the development of St. Martin by providing their assistance through research. So to conclude, we have the improvement in quality of policy and legislative output. I don't ever talk about Parliament alone. I always include government as well, because the executive branch has even a bigger role to play in effective and evidence-based decision making. The Digital Thesis Library will be a catalog, a digital catalog that anyone can access. So years from now, we can go back digitally and we can see all the research that was done, and there is one place that everyone can come to receive that information. And of course, to me, one of the biggest advantages of having such a repository is that we engage the diaspora continuously, that St. Martiners, no matter where they live, can feel as if they are a part of the development of this country and are connected by the work that they do. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Solange Duncan, for your presentation. I move to my left, and I see some members of Parliament have questions. And
just a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
yes,
I see that the mics are working a little differently. Are we supposed to just indicate by hand how we're speaking today, not the usual way?
oh yeah, that's what I just noticed too. It's going automatic on speaking.
So we just raise hands or something?
Let's adjourn and to rectify it. Meeting adjourned for 2 minutes.
Have green. No, it's not. It just comes on red.
Have the mic on.
Word. Right now, the mic is on.
So let's say no,
So-
it's,
Yeah, I know we can all talk and talk all over each other. So something is wrong with the. There's no more there's no more MP click.
Welcome back, and I give the floor to MP Sarah Westcott-Williams. MP Westcott-Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity, and my thanks to my colleague MP Duncan for her presentation and for this initiative, which I totally support. The MP indicated, and I guess it was just some random researches and such that have been done by St. Martiners in the diaspora, and there are many more, and really some of them go into many of the matters with which we struggle in terms to come to solutions. Some very creative and innovative solutions have come up as part of these theses, and I therefore again just want to express my support for this project going forward. Mr. Chairman, some time ago, and that's not a digital library, of course, or just a regular library of books, and I was able to donate quite some, especially legal books, to the Library of Parliament, because that too is important, that we have that kind of research possibility. So I just wanted to add that. And then thirdly, in reacting to a decision by the Prime Minister of St. Martin, which was communicated to government-owned companies, namely that these government companies should strive to get local St. Martiners in top positions at these companies. That has been a letter forwarded to government-owned companies by the Prime Minister. My response to that letter, and I have formally submitted this via government as well, was that firstly, what is government's policy with respect to following their own directive in terms of getting St. Martiners and locals ready and equipped for positions, especially managerial positions? That was my question in response to this letter that had gone out. Secondly, was this letter by the Prime Minister regarding that topic? And Mr. Chairman, it's not questions to the presenter, to MP Duncan, but I'm stating this in connection with this proposal. So my next question, which has been submitted to the Prime Minister, is whether this particular letter has been sent to all government-owned companies, because I don't know, and if I see what is taking place at some government-owned companies supported by the government, to me that is contradictory to that very directive that went out. So that's a statement I wanted to make. And then thirdly, in my response to the Prime Minister regarding that decision or that communication to government-owned companies, I suggested that we look at a type of hybrid situation for our professionals and students abroad. What do I mean with that? Because, Mr. Chairman, MP Duncan, the presenter today, and several other colleagues, along with myself, were at a gathering in the Netherlands with St. Martin professionals and students. And while the clarion call was, "Come back home," what we heard during that session is that that is easier said than done. And for differing or different reasons, family, school, children going to school in the Netherlands, etc., the remuneration that these persons get. So what was my suggestion for a hybrid type of employment/consultancy? It was that when consultant contracts are being advertised, that specific attention is paid to our diaspora. One, give them the opportunity, not asking them to shut down whatever they're doing in the Netherlands and come to St. Martin, but rather have the opportunity to react to these offers of consultancy, have the opportunity to come to St. Martin for a period of time, take note of what is necessary, go back to, whether it be the Netherlands or the United States, and complete the work for St. Martin. What we would see is that oftentimes this type of consultancy will tie into some of the research that is being done. And the whole waste management issue is one of such. We have seen several St. Martiners done a study, a research for their thesis and otherwise with respect to the issue of waste management on St. Martin. So I just wanted to give to MP Duncan that proposal that I put in writing to the Prime Minister in connection with this directive about getting St. Martiners / and I'm using the word used by the Prime Minister in this letter, St. Martiner / local should be given the opportunity to be in managerial positions. That is the letter, and I'm paraphrasing it, that was sent to government-owned companies on St. Martin. So again, thank you, MP Duncan, for your proposal. Well worth it, and I look forward to hearing from the Prime Minister or maybe even the thoughts of MP Duncan on the matter of this hybrid type of an employment situation for our for the expatriates of St. Martin in other countries. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Sarah Westcott-Williams. The next person I have is MP Rolando Bryson. MP Bryson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you, our colleague members of Parliament, the Secretary General, and a special good morning to MP Duncan. Very nice presentation, as we spoke about it also, very good initiative, something, Mr. Chairman, that you know we've also discussed in Presidium and from a Presidium perspective already approved. But as this affects all the members of Parliament, it's good that all members of Parliament got this briefing. One of the first things I would like to ask is maybe if you can go into more detail as to how you would envision us really marketing this and capturing and gaining the interest of the students to send this there. What would be some of the initiatives you could propose to the Presidium? Is it, for example, one of the thoughts I had is when we do travel to the Netherlands in IPCO, to IPCO in the Netherlands, that maybe that's another thing, another dimension we can add to when we meet with students there, that we can, maybe this type of presentation can be done to some of the students, especially those that are currently writing their thesis, our Facebook pages, whatever ideas you may have, because I think it would be important to make sure this is communicated to them and that they're convinced that it's something that is viable, that is something that we're going to use, that is something that can affect change in our country. So I know the MP is a marketing mind, something a lot of people don't know about MP Duncan. She's a bit of a marketing mind, so we're gonna test that here today again. I was also interested in her perspective on, let's say, this being a sort of Parliament initiative, but that one of the things she mentioned is that government should, to paraphrase, make use of this. Can you go a little deeper in how you envision that? Because, okay, let's say we've seen some very good examples of where government should take note of this. Do you maybe picture us debating it in a committee and then sending it along with various questions to the minister to see their responses? Do we ask them to periodically check it themselves and on initiative say, hey, we have looked at this thesis, these are some of the things we plan to do, or we're going to be in contact with said student. Just some ideas on how we can synchronize this a little bit with the government and the Parliament. I also agree that interns, in terms of internship, is very important and an underrated aspect of both the government and Parliament. Our faction ourselves have already had one intern working with us. The first one was Rianne Duivenvoorde, who was a student of international and European law. And we're actually in the process of getting another intern. That last intern had completed and actually did a paper for us in terms of believe it's Article 6 and Articles 8 of the Human Rights Charter of the European Union, and also the Right to Basic Bank Account Directive 2014-92 of Europe. So we see that things that we discuss in Parliament, I actually learned a lot, because we discussed, let's say when we're talking about immigration, about the human rights and so on, it was good to kind of see how the evolution of the Human Rights Charter and also the applicability of European directives. So you have European charters and you have European directives. There seems to be a gray area in terms of the applicability of directives to overseas territories. So getting that fresh perspective from a student that was deep in it was very valuable to me, and that was something I was able to apply in legislating and in interpolating our ministers. So right now, I think it's really just kind of done on request. You know, a member of faction can ask and do it via the Secretary General, but perhaps maybe something we should do as presidium is create a sort of a process for that as well within our own. Also, just a slight thing, something for us to maybe keep in mind is if they're written in another language, or some of them will be written in Dutch, for example, if that we can translate them, so have them translated. I'm not sure how we will do that, just simply by sort of Google Translate, but then we know those are not very accurate. To now manually translate will probably be expensive and long, so that will be an issue. But maybe it's kind of very clearly stated that this is an unofficial translation if it was in Dutch and we do it in English. But considering not just the members of Parliament, but the public who would want to read these documents, we should keep in mind that I think all should be available in English in some form or the other. And if members of Parliament, how would the initiator of this idea envision members of Parliament's interaction with the students? So if something is uploaded to this database, is there contact information? Because we did talk about, let's say, confidentiality. Maybe some students might just kind of want to get it published, or is it the understanding that if we want more information, we can contact said student to get a better idea of what their intention was, maybe even a follow-up into how the thesis was received by their university. So if that contact information, is that made public, or is that then maybe just provided to the members of Parliament internally, or is there an option where the student can say, well, I don't mind having my email address available, that if anyone has questions, they can send it to me. All in all, very good initiative. Look forward to having this implemented on our website. Internally, we need to discuss the technicalities and making sure we can have it on our website, and making sure that it's something that actually is executed by the Parliament of St. Maarten. And maybe, Mr. Chairman, well, that's something I think we'll discuss after in Presidium in terms of a timeline for when we can have this executed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Bryson. The next person is MP Emmanuel. MP Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone, and good morning, special good morning to my honorable colleague on her birthday. You know, I listened to the presentation and I listened to the questions from my colleague, and I was a bit saddened because I sit from this end and then I look on that side and I see someone who have made a decision not to postulate and run in this election again. And then when I listen to the presentation and I see the concern and the work and I see everything that goes into it, and I'm saying to myself, it's a loss. And it's a loss to the people of St. Maarten, it's a loss to the students, and it's a loss to the Ministry of Education, because from what I'm hearing and from what I'm seeing, I am seeing a future Minister of Education, but yet have made a decision not to jump in the ring anymore. But I also take solace in knowing that it is being done with pure heart, pure love, and pure patriotism for this country. My colleague MP Bryson asked the question that I wanted to ask, which was in relations to how do you foresee government really taking this up and moving with it? Because initiatives just come and go. And, you know, we have this sort of an ego once it doesn't come from a particular brass or individual or from my person, it just stays there. So how do you envision government saying, listen, yes, we are going to take this, move it, run with it, and see that we can work with every facet of this presentation. But again, yeah, you know, I'm a bit saddened to know that all of this intellect and love for country will not be on a. Anyway, I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Christopher Emmanuel. The next person I have is MP Angelique Rumu. MP Rumu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A pleasant good morning to you. Pleasant good morning to my colleague MPs, to the viewing and listening public, and those in the Tribune. And I would like to join my fellow colleagues in wishing my Cahill, my Cahill partner, MP Duncan, a pleasant, happy birthday. Wishing you many more blessed years to come. I also want to commend you on your initiative taken. I believe that seeing the hard work that you have put in with this initiative and having the support from the Presidium, and I believe all of us here in Parliament, it will go very far. I also want to implore the students or those who have already graduated, who are listening, to take this opportunity to provide their thesis to this digital library, because I know that there are many students, as MP Westcott Williams said, who have done very important thesis pertaining to various topics that concern St. Martin, and having their work being available for the public of St. Martin is something that I believe is great. But besides that, I also believe that there are many of these students and young professionals who have not returned to St. Martin, that once their work is shown and people know that, that might also provide an opportunity for them to return and be taken up in the development and the future of St. Martin. So I want to commend you on the work that you've done, and you also have my full support. Thank you, MP Duncan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Rumu. Anyone else? No. No more. MP Bryson, you have the floor.
Just one other point there that I wanted to add. Like I mentioned earlier, interns, while doing internships, sometimes draft up some sort of report. As a matter of fact, myself, I was an intern when I was in university. I actually was an intern for then Commissioner Theodore Heiliger in tourism. And at the time, one of the studies we did was regarding the parking situation in Phillipsburg, because that was before, back then, vehicles were able to park on back street, and they needed to do a whole determination on who parks, whether it's tourists, locals, etc., how you can deviate the parking and so on, and the effect on tourism. Those type of reports can help government execute. I mentioned an intern drafted a report. It's not really a thesis, but maybe consideration also for those type of projects, if they're not confidential in nature, if those can also be provided to within our library. So there's a section for, like, say, intern reports, and then another section for thesis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Bryson. I don't see anyone else. I believe there were a few questions, most of them congratulated MP Duncan with the thesis, but you have any questions that you would like to answer them now? Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes. Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Welcome back. And right away, I'll give the floor to MP Duncan to answer the few questions members of Parliament had posed. MP Duncan, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to say thank you to all of my colleagues for their support of this initiative. I believe as well that it's extremely important, but what is important is that we do actually implement the library, get it going, and that not only our students, our professionals, researchers all over the world use it and see the value in contributing to our development. MP Westcott Williams talked about a sort of hybrid consultancy initiative or proposal, and I agree as well. I believe that we have actually done ourselves a disservice because of, it's been 13 years since 2010, and we have not taken advantage of asking our diaspora to contribute, and contribute in a way that does not involve them being physically here. Why? Because I don't believe it's necessary, actually. We have St. Martiners working for Microsoft, working for Google, working for all of these incredible companies, and they want to contribute to St. Martin from abroad digitally, and I think that this is one way. So I agree with MP Westcott Williams, and I believe that it is important that we look at different ways in which we can get those transfers of knowledge and skills without asking our people to come and be physically here. It's 2023. There's actually no real huge need for it, in my opinion. MP Bryson asked a number of questions, and of course, MP being himself, once upon a time, a student who contributed, and look where it got him. So on marketing, MP asked about the marketing of this initiative. So there's a number of different ways. Besides, of course, Parliament using the tools that Parliament has, I look at the St. Martin House as being a sort of core component to the marketing of this initiative. I look at an organization that MP Gums co-founded, the St. Martin Unified St. Martin Connection, another organization in the Netherlands that would be a sort of contact point to spread the word. I actually did speak to one of the representatives there last year. I don't know if the Tallahassee St. Martin Foundation is still active in Tallahassee in Florida. But we have these little pockets of St. Martiners here and there that we can use, whether it's formal organizations or non-formal, to sort of spread the word. And again, it is a mutually beneficial initiative. Students and researchers can receive the support that they need, and they can also be a part of the decision making and the development. So it's mutually beneficial. We need the research to do our work more effectively, and they also need the support as well. I want to mention that our colleague MP in Curacao, MP Mercelina, their faction met with the Hague University at IPCO when we were last there, and he also had an intern work for their faction in Curacao and provided a report, or submitted a report to the Parliament of Curacao. And so in this way, perhaps besides only going to the St. Martin House, we can also go to universities in the Netherlands to meet with our students that are there and basically form relationships with the main universities and get them to not only buy into this concept, but also, again, allow us to be seen as a home to our students who want to do research, or any researcher, on St. Martin and hopefully solving St. Martin's policy issues. MP Bryson also asked about government and how I envision them being a part of this. So what was important is that the digital library is public, because besides Parliament, we have government, we have a university here also locally. So students themselves who are doing research need to access other research. And so for me, when I think about government as a former policy advisor, I would hope that with the introduction of this library, the policy advisor at any single department, in any single ministry, would make the library a stop during their policy making process. So the same way we go on Google and now probably ChatGPT, that the library, the Digital Thesis Library at Parliament is also a stop where policymakers can come and research, or at least access research that pertains to the work that they're doing. So in addition to us as MPs asking ministers questions or saying, hey, minister, did you see the research on this particular topic? I also want to recognize a researcher in the Netherlands that is currently focusing on mental health and substance abuse in youth. I think that research is extremely important. And I did ask our Minister of Education if the research was seen by the ministry. And the answer was no. I think these are ways in which we can improve, again, how we make policy, how we make decisions, and as well, having the research come from St. Martin, people who understand the St. Martin context. It's extremely important. I agree with MP Bryson about the translation of research. So most of the research I have seen is in English, and nowadays almost everything is in English, but perhaps in the submission form or the guidelines, we can note that the submissions should be in English, or if in Dutch, that a translated version should also be sent along, because again, it's not only for our consumption, but for public consumption as well. It's important. I did mention, and I do agree about the difference between a report and a thesis or dissertation. That distinction is important, and I think there may be a way to separate the two, but definitely important, because any research right now that uses qualitative and quantitative data is important, not only for Parliament, but for government as well, because we do lack statistics, we do lack a lot of data on St. Martin. In the submission form again, and that's why I said step one would be to finalize those details, that we can also, let's say maybe a checkbox, ask researchers if they would allow an MP to contact them after their research has been submitted. I think that would be a great addition. Why? Because you can get into more details, and also to maybe request research, because as I mentioned, we don't have a department for research here in Parliament. So creating a network in which we can engage researchers at any time, whether that is salaried or not, I think would be a win for Parliament moving forward. The other MPs had similar questions, and so I answered MP Emmanuel's question on government, and so just asking or hoping that policy advisors make the Digital Thesis Library a stop in their, let's say, advice process. And also to MP Romu mentioned, or at least encouraged students to use the thesis library. And I agree, and thank you for that. Why? Because I think if we look at the last 5 to 10 years, we will probably find very valuable research that we can use now. That we can definitely, maybe if we look over the last 20 years, we can still find research that applies to St. Martin. And so I would also like to encourage students to email Parliament, although the library is not up and running yet officially, but I would still like to encourage students to reach out to us here at Parliament with any research that they believe is valuable for the development of St. Martin. And that is it for me, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank you and thank the committee for the time and the attention and the support of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Duncan. Any more questions? No? None? With this, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this meeting. I thank you all for your participation, and I hereby close this meeting.